The crowd was loud, restless, and impatient under the glowing lights of the massive talent show stage. Hundreds of people filled the theater while millions watched from home, expecting another ordinary performance. But everything changed the moment a skinny barefoot boy walked onto the stage carrying a worn-out guitar with peeling paint. His clothes were faded from years of washing, and his nervous hands trembled so badly the microphone nearly slipped from his fingers. The judges exchanged uncertain glances. Some people in the audience whispered. A few even laughed softly. No one believed the shy Filipino boy standing beneath the spotlight was about to create one of the greatest moments in talent show history. But then he spoke in a quiet voice that instantly silenced the room. "My name is Mateo," he said. "And tonight, I sing for my mother." The theater became still. Mateo took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and strummed the opening chords of Hotel California. The sound that came out of his mouth didn't just surprise the judges. It shattered every expectation in the building. Mateo grew up in a tiny fishing village near the coast of the Philippines, where life was hard and dreams felt impossible. Their small wooden house stood beside muddy roads that flooded every rainy season. The roof leaked whenever storms came, and most nights the family slept listening to rainwater drip into metal buckets placed around the floor. Mateo's father had disappeared years earlier after leaving to find work in another city. He never returned. His mother, Elena, raised Mateo and his younger sister Sofia alone by selling fish in the local market from sunrise until evening. Every day she walked miles carrying heavy baskets while trying to hide her exhaustion behind a smile. Even as a child, Mateo understood poverty better than most adults. Some mornings there was no breakfast. Some nights the electricity stopped working because the bills could not be paid. He watched his mother pretend she wasn't hungry so her children could eat the last bowl of rice. Those moments burned deeply into his heart. Mateo hated feeling helpless. He wanted to change their lives, but he had no idea how. Everything changed when he discovered music. One evening, while helping an old neighbor repair fishing nets, Mateo heard a strange sound floating through the air. It was warm, emotional, and haunting. He followed the melody until he found an old radio playing Hotel California. Mateo stood frozen. The music felt magical. He didn't understand all the English words, but the emotion inside the song spoke directly to him. It sounded lonely and beautiful at the same time, like someone singing about pain hidden behind a smile. From that moment, Mateo became obsessed with music. The neighbor owned a broken guitar missing 2 strings. Seeing Mateo's fascination, the old man handed it to him and laughed. "If you can make this thing sing," he joked, "you might become somebody someday." Mateo practiced every spare second. He played until his fingertips bled. He learned chords by watching internet videos outside a cell phone repair shop because he couldn't afford his own phone. At night he sat beside the window listening carefully to songs on the radio and copying melodies by ear. Sometimes neighbors yelled at him to stop because the guitar sounded terrible. But Mateo kept practicing. Years passed. His talent slowly grew. At school, Mateo was quiet and often bullied because of his old clothes and poor background. Other students mocked his accent and called him the market boy. One afternoon a group of boys grabbed his guitar and threw it into the mud while laughing. Mateo picked it up silently, trying not to cry. The damage was bad. One side cracked open. That night he stayed awake, repairing it with glue and tape while his mother watched sadly from the corner of the room. "You don't have to suffer like this for music," Elena whispered gently. Mateo shook his head. "One day this guitar will save us." His mother smiled even though she didn't fully believe him. Months later, Mateo began singing in small public places to earn money. He performed near jeepney stations, crowded markets, and ferry ports. Most people ignored him. Some dropped coins into an old plastic container. Others laughed at his English songs. Still, Mateo kept singing. He believed every performance made him stronger. One rainy evening, a local tourist recorded Mateo singing Hotel California beside the market during a storm. Water dripped from the roof while Mateo sang with raw emotion, eyes closed, completely lost in the music. The tourist uploaded the video online. Within days, everything exploded. Millions of people shared the clip. Viewers were stunned by the powerful voice coming from a poor teenage boy standing barefoot in the rain. Comments poured in from around the world. Some people cried while watching. Others demanded talent shows invite him to perform. Eventually producers from a famous international competition contacted Mateo with an unbelievable offer. They wanted him on the show. At first, Mateo thought it was fake. People like him didn't get opportunities like that. But after several phone calls, reality finally hit. He had been chosen. The problem was money. The audition was in another country, and the family couldn't even afford proper food some weeks. Elena secretly sold her late husband's old fishing boat to pay for travel expenses. When Mateo discovered what she had done, he was heartbroken. That boat was all we had left from Papa, he said softly. No, Elena replied while holding his face. You are what I have left. Mateo promised himself he would not fail. The journey to the competition was terrifying. It was his first time on an airplane. His first time leaving the Philippines. Everything felt overwhelming, the giant buildings, the bright lights, the cameras everywhere. Backstage, Mateo saw contestants with expensive clothes, vocal coaches, and professional musicians. Compared to them, he felt invisible. Minutes before his audition, panic hit him hard. His hands shook uncontrollably. His breathing became uneven. He considered running away. What if people laughed? What if his voice cracked? What if he embarrassed his family in front of the world? Then he looked into the audience and saw his mother sitting alone, wearing the same simple dress she had worn for years. She smiled proudly despite looking exhausted from the long trip. That smile gave him strength. When Mateo stepped onto the stage, the judges seemed unsure. One judge asked kindly, "Why did you choose this song?" Mateo swallowed nervously. "Because my mother worked her whole life trapped in pain, and I want tonight to be the night she finally escapes." The audience applauded softly. Then the music began. The first note stunned everyone. Mateo's voice was deep, emotional, and unbelievably powerful. Every lyric carried years of struggle, heartbreak, and hope. He wasn't just singing the song. He was living it. His voice rose through the theater like a storm crashing against the sea. The audience sat frozen. One judge's mouth dropped open in disbelief. Another judge began tearing up halfway through the performance. When Mateo reached the chorus, the entire room exploded with emotion. People stood up screaming. Some cried openly. The camera showed Elena covering her mouth in shock as tears streamed down her face. Then came the final high note. Mateo held it perfectly. Silence followed for one breathtaking second. And suddenly, slam, the golden buzzer was hit. Golden confetti burst from the ceiling as the audience erupted louder than ever before. Mateo stared upward in disbelief while golden paper rained around him like sunlight. His knees buckled. He started crying uncontrollably. Elena rushed onto the stage and hugged him tightly while the crowd roared with applause. You did it, she whispered through tears. You really did it. The judges called it one of the greatest auditions they had ever seen. Clips of the performance spread across the internet within hours. News stations replayed it non-stop. People around the world fell in love with the humble Filipino boy who transformed pain into music. But fame brought new challenges. As Mateo advanced through the competition, pressure grew heavier. Critics claimed he was only popular because of his sad background. Online haters attacked his accent and appearance. Some accused the show of using his poverty for ratings. Mateo tried ignoring the comments, but secretly they hurt deeply. One night before the semifinals, he nearly quit. I'm tired, he admitted to his mother backstage. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong here. Elena looked at him firmly. Do you know why people cry when you sing? Mateo shook his head. Because your voice tells the truth. And truth always reaches the heart. Those words changed him. In the semifinals, Mateo sang with even more passion than before. He stopped trying to impress people and focused only on telling his story through music. The performance became another viral sensation. Even famous singers praised him online. By the time finals arrived, Mateo had become a symbol of hope across the Philippines. Entire villages gathered around televisions to watch him. Schools paused classes. Restaurants played his performances on screens. Children from poor communities saw themselves in him. The final performance was unforgettable. Mateo dedicated the song to every child who believed poverty destroyed dreams forever. His voice carried strength far beyond his years. By the final chorus, even the judges were crying openly. When the winner was announced, the theater held its breath. And the champion is Mateo. The crowd exploded. Mateo collapsed in tears while his mother screamed with joy. Confetti filled the air again as the boy from the flooded fishing village stood trembling beneath the spotlight, unable to believe his life had changed forever. But the greatest part of Mateo's story happened after the show ended. Instead of spending all his prize money on fame and luxury, Mateo returned home and rebuilt his community. He repaired damaged homes, funded music programs for poor children, and helped struggling families in his village. He bought his mother a safe house where rain never leaked through the roof again. One evening, months later, Mateo sat outside their new home playing the same old cracked guitar he once repaired with glue and tape. Sofia asked him softly, "Kuya, do you ever wish you were born rich instead?" Mateo smiled gently. "No," he answered, "because if life had been easy, I would never have learned how strong the human heart can become." And under the quiet night sky of the Philippines, the boy who once sang barefoot in the rain continued playing music, not for fame, not for money, but to remind the world that even the poorest soul can rise high enough to inspire millions.